It's Shinobu's first day working as a caretaker in an apartment run by his mom. This is the only job he could get because of his ugly face, so he's nervous as hell. Suddenly, a blonde girl in a maid outfit appears and offers to bring him more water since he's not feeling too well. But just then, the girl goes a little crazy, suggesting he rest on her lap if he's dizzy. Shinobu freaks out and quickly thanks her, insisting he's suddenly feeling much better. The blondie gets flustered and quickly apologizes for being too forward, insisting she just had the urge to pamper something. But suddenly, Shinobu sees something scary. 3 other hot baddies stand right in front of him, making it 4 chicks in total. The one with the short hair leans in close with her moderate balloons practically in his face. She introduces herself as Aya, 29 years old from room 7 and the daughter of a big corporation owner. But Shinobu catches a strong smell of alcohol on her breath. Just then, another blonde beauty steps forward and introduces herself as Arisa from room 5, the daughter of a wealthy hotel owner. After her introduction, she grabs her shy friend and insists she introduce herself too. The shy girl quietly says her name is Nozomi, 24 years old from room 6. She explains that her mother runs a tea ceremony school while she works as an illustrator. As she speaks, she accidentally locks eyes with Shinobu. Noticing his intense stare, she panics and quickly hides behind Arisa. Embarrassed, Shinobu admits he knows he looks like a drugged ape, but swears he wasn't even glaring at her. But the girl in the maid outfit chimes in, saying Shinobu got beautiful eyes, which catches Shinobu off guard. Shinobu then thanks her sincerely for the compliment, which makes her flustered. The girl turns to run away in embarrassment but stops mid-step, realizing she forgot to introduce herself. She says her name is Seika, 27 years old, from room 2, and her father founded a restaurant chain called Franchise that started in Japan. However, she now works as a live-in employee there, helping with housework ever since moving in this spring. With introductions out of the way, all the girls cheerfully crowd around Shinobu, saying they're looking forward to living with him. But Shinobu feels awkward, still clueless about why there are so many girls in the house. The way they all stare at him makes him more than a little uncomfortable. To be sure, Shinobu asks if there are any male residents in the apartment, but the girls shockingly explain that the shared house was built specifically for ladies. Just then, another girl wearing striped stockings strolls in and apologizes for being late. She introduces herself as Maho, 26 years old from room 3. She's a game live streamer and the daughter of one of Japan's biggest General Electric manufacturers. Still in disbelief that it's an all-girls house, Shinobu raises his hand and asks them to hold up a sec. He needs to clarify something important. He reminds them that he's a guy with a matured eggplant, and then asks if working a part-time job as a caretaker in a house full of girls isn't risky. Just then, the conversation quickly shifts to the conditions for him moving in. The girls want to test if he's truly fit to live there. They explain there are specific requirements he needs to meet if he wants to stay. Since no one has told him the rules yet, they decide it's time to give him a test. The girls all seem excited about the idea, while Shinobu grows more worried about the bizarre situation he's landed in. Arisa, the blondie, then suggests he start with some housework to test his skills. If he shows them what he can do, they'll get a better idea of what kind of worker he really is. Maho agrees and adds that since he'll be working in the apartment anyway, he should think of it as an interview. Shinobu reluctantly agrees to start with cleaning, though he admits he doesn't really know where to begin. Arisa then mentions that she hasn't cleaned the bathroom in days and suggests he start there. She tells him to ask if he has any questions about the housework. With that, the test begins with a dramatic flare as Maho raises her hand and tells the young man to go forth, while Shinobu stands there, completely stunned, wondering what the heck he's gotten himself into. While cleaning hours later, Shinobu and Seika get a little bit on a more personal level, as she admits she's never worked a part-time job before either, and this is her first real part-time job too. Shinobu replies, saying he's sure she never had the opportunity before, and then assures her that it's fine no matter when she starts. They share a sweet moment as the girl looks at him with appreciation, and then she gently pats his head. When Shinobu asks why, she says she just wants to praise him a little for being so understanding. Later, the rich girls of the apartment check in to see how the cleaning is going, then ask if Shinobu and Seika have finished washing all the laundry for the day. Seika replies, explaining they already sent everything out to the cleaners. But just then Aya, carrying a box, says she has more dirty clothes and was planning to wear them on her date tomorrow. So she wants them washed as soon as possible. This turns into yet another test for Shinobu. Things get even more awkward when Aya hands him a basket full of her undies to wash by hand. Shinobu's face turns red instantly as he starts sweating buckets. He nervously asks where the rest of her laundry is, but Aya casually explains there isn't any. Everything else she said had already gone to the dry cleaners. The only thing left, she says, is her underwear, because that has to be washed by hand. Shinobu panics and reminds her they have a perfectly good washing machine and dryer, but Aya refuses, claiming the machine is only good for simple stuff like towels. Just then, Seika steps in with a cheerful smile and offers to teach Shinobu the proper technique for washing muffin covers. She then suggests using her own plot armor for practice, since Aya's is apparently too high-end. Shinobu nearly dies of stroke when Seika pulls out the mushy undies she's currently wearing and starts giving him detailed instructions on how to wash lace without stretching it. For the more delicate parts, she explains, he needs to be extra gentle and use special detergent. Things quickly get too uncomfortable, so Shinobu shuts his eyes from seeing things that will mess with his brain. Noticing his reaction, Aya teasingly asks if his little soldier is getting stiff just by seeing her underwear. But before Shinobu can respond, Maho jumps in, arguing that there's no way Shinobu would pop off over the undies of an old hag like her. That sparks an argument, with Aya snapping back that she's just 29 and not even 30 yet, so calling her old is ridiculous. But Maho stands by her point. Trying to prove she's still a baddie, Aya suddenly starts to take off her top to show that her melons are still standing tall and proud. But the girls immediately swarm around the nutcase, stopping her mid-strip and asking if she's still drunk or something. They offer her water to help sober her up before she does something wild. Following that, Seika approaches Shinobu and apologizes. She explains that Aya is just a useless drunkard, which explains her earlier behavior. But Shinobu is already deep in his feelings and decides to open up about his past, admitting he's not used to having women around him, so everything just kind of caught him off guard. Getting emotional, he breaks down and confesses that he really misses his mom. He shares how his mom was hardly ever around when he was a kid, and though it feels silly to bring it up now, the feelings hit him hard. Seika tries to comfort him gently. After a moment, Shinobu pulls himself together, sits down, and says he's back, his expression much calmer now. However, Seika softly pats his head and tells him that the conditions for living in the apartment don't really matter to her. She says she had already decided to leave the final decision to the others, but then she assures him that, at the very least, he's passed her test. Then, out of the blue, Seika hints at something bigger. She accidentally says she's sure he'll find a wonderful wife in the apartment. Shinobu blinks, confused, wondering what she means by find a wife. Before he can ask her to explain, the big reveal hits. Maho suddenly hands him a phone with his mom on a video call. The mom starts off by apologizing for not being at the apartment that night. But then she gets straight to the point. She tells him directly that he will marry one of the girls. Shinobu stares in complete shock as the reality of his situation finally sinks in. His mom then explains her reasoning. She says she didn't want him to go through the same struggles she did, which is why she chose older girls for him. According to her, older chicks have their act together way more than most teenage girls. But Shinobu disagrees, reminding his mom that he's still way too young to be talked into marriage. His mom apologizes, then admits she's just worried about him. Before ending the call, she reminds him that he has only 1 year to decide who he wants to marry and advises him to choose carefully. Shinobu finds the whole situation completely unfair. He's never been able to say no to his mother's requests, which only adds to his confusion. Just then, Seika asks if the food is to his liking. Caught off guard, Shinobu freaks out a little but quickly replies that the food is really good. Seika smiles and then casually suggests they head to her room after breakfast, but Shinobu wonders why. After breakfast, they enter Seika's room together. Shinobu keeps questioning in his head why he's alone in her room, but then Seika gently invites him to come over to her side. That's when Shinobu's cultured imagination kicks into overdrive, picturing Seika taking off her clothes and telling him to get ready for a special throating lesson. But Shinobu quickly snaps out of the daydream when he hears Seika offering to teach him how to thoroughly clean a room. She shows him a floor plan of the building, explaining that aside from his, all the rooms are on the second floor and numbered accordingly. However, she soon notices Shinobu zoning out, staring intently at something, and gently asks what's wrong. Shinobu admits he was just thinking about how they live in completely different worlds. From the start, it's been clear to him that the girls in this apartment are way more important than he is. Seika then asks if he dislikes the conditions placed on living there, and Shinobu replies that he honestly hates it. Feeling a bit awkward at his response, Seika admits she never really cared much about the whole marriage thing, but she had hoped he would at least stay in the apartment. However, Shinobu quickly clarifies that it's not like he hates them or anything. He just doesn't want to follow in his mom's footsteps. Seika, confused, asks what he means by that. Shinobu then opens up about his family's complicated past. Years ago, his parents ran off together and eloped. It was a whirlwind romance, like a prince falling for a commoner. But even after all they did to be together, their values were too different. His freedom-loving dad and his workaholic mom just couldn't make it work. Eventually, his mom left the family. After that, his brokey dad kept bouncing from job to job like a pimp swapping babes, and because of the hustle, they were always struggling to get by. Somehow, they managed to survive those tough years, mostly thanks to his mom's alimony payments. Concerned, Seika asks if his disgusting face came from all the hardships he's been through, but Shinobu claims it's just genetics. Shinobu continues opening up, saying that even if he does manage to earn a stable income, he still doesn't believe money or power would be enough to win someone over. As for this whole game, or whatever it is, Shinobu admits he feels bad about it. He doesn't want to impose on her or anyone else in the house. The mood shifts as things grow more emotional. Seika blushes deeply and quietly says she feels bad too, for getting in his way, and then asks him to just forget the whole conversation ever happened. Then, softly, she pleads with him to please stay in the apartment, but Shinobu looks genuinely surprised by her sudden show of affection. The tender moment is cut short when Maho and Arisa suddenly burst in, full of excitement. Arisa declares it's a pass from her because Shinobu's backstory really got her invested. Maho, a bit more reluctant, admits that he passed with full points. The girls then turn to Nozomi to confirm, and she shyly nods that she's fine with the arrangement. Shinobu looks at the girls, clearly confused and unsure of what to say. But before he can respond, Arisa suddenly hugs him, smiling as she says she hopes he takes good care of them. Caught off guard, Shinobu responds likewise, showing he's warming up to this unusual living situation. The following day, Shinobu's having a rough morning. He wakes up to find the girls in their underwear lounging around his room. Annoyed, he complains, asking them to stop relaxing in his room all day. But Arisa casually points out that a Japanese-style room like his is just perfect for lazing around. It feels more like a vacation spot to her. Shinobu, totally confused, asks if they weren't supposed to be checking in with their individual companies today. Each girl explains her situation. Arisa says she's still on summer break. Maho mentions she works from home, so she doesn't have to go anywhere. Listening to their excuses, Shinobu quietly thinks to himself that rich people really are built differently, and how they don't seem to have a care in the world. Just then, another maid named Hashika knocks on Shinobu's door, announcing that breakfast is ready and suggesting they all meet in the living room whenever they're ready. But just as everyone starts heading out, Shinobu's mom, Ai, suddenly appears on the laptop screen. She cheerfully comments that Shinobu must be getting used to living in the apartment by now. Then she drops a new update. She said she'll be handing out social interaction schedules. She explains that the schedule includes events like Halloween, Christmas, and more, saying these kinds of activities will help deepen their relationships. Arisa lights up, saying it sounds fun. Maho adds that it makes sense things like this would happen in a setup like theirs. Before ending the call, Ai says she'll text the schedule to Shinobu and tells him to make sure he checks it. In a quiet moment of reflection, Shinobu thinks he would have been just fine with a normal part-time job. Instead, he's now stuck managing a shared apartment full of spoiled rich daughters from powerful families. Still, considering it's his first job, Shinobu has been giving it his all, working hard every day. But the pressure from his mom's ultimatum to marry an older woman continues to weigh heavily on him. Seika notices he looks troubled and suggests they all have tea after he's done with his duties, while asking if he's okay with that. Still a bit confused, Shinobu asks if she means like afternoon tea Seika and says yes. Several hours later, Seika presents an elaborate tea setup that looks fancy and formal. She then announces the start of their tea party, explaining that the theme this time is a Gothic Lolita afternoon. All the girls are already dressed in elaborate Gothic Lolita outfits. Shinobu, looking completely confused by everyone's fancy attire, asks what's going on and if this is supposed to be some kind of party. Aya explains that all of them first met at a tea party his mom arranged. She says it's become something of a tradition, which is why they still get together like this. As the tea party kicks off, Seika gently invites Shinobu to have a seat as well. While watching the girls sip their tea, Shinobu starts to understand the kind of bond they share. He looks around at the girls all dressed up and realizes that they really do look like proper rich ladies. Meanwhile, Aya leans back and mentions that the black tea mixed with brandy and paired with sweets is pure bliss. Arisa takes a sip too and agrees, but admits she's already feeling a bit dizzy from the alcohol. But then Hashika quickly warns them not to go overboard with the alcohol. The girls just giggle and start clinging to each other, the mood turning light and playful. Suddenly, someone raises her hand with a question for Shinobu. It's Aya who suddenly blurts out, asking if he's a virgin. Shinobu chokes on his tea and spits it out in shock. Before he can respond, someone quickly scolds Aya, telling her that's way too embarrassing to ask. She should have just asked if he had a girlfriend instead. That someone is Seika, who then calmly asks if he does. But Shinobu snaps, saying that if he had a girlfriend, he wouldn't even be in the apartment in the first place, basically confirming he doesn't have one. Seika gets excited by his response and says she's so glad he doesn't have a girlfriend. But then she quickly apologizes, saying it's not like she's happy that he's some kind of creepy loner. Hashika then chimes in, asking if Shinobu has any questions for the girls. She says now's the perfect chance. Shinobu pauses for a moment, seriously thinking about what to ask. His dirty mind considers asking which one of them has the biggest bust size, but he immediately shuts that thought down, knowing this isn't the time for it. Getting serious, Shinobu asks why they all agreed to let him live in the apartment, especially since none of them had ever met him before. The girls go silent for a moment, genuinely reflecting on the question. Meanwhile, Arisa is already lost in thought, wondering if Shinobu is truly okay with this whole marriage thing. Snapping out of her thoughts, Arisa suddenly asks Shinobu if he's actually taking the whole marriage condition seriously. Shinobu gets flustered by the question, unsure how to respond. Arisa takes his silence as a yes and says that makes sense. She explains that since he'd been living in the apartment without ever bringing up the marriage stuff, she assumed he was just ignoring it completely. She then reveals that although they all agreed to the marriage thing at first, none of them actually planned to go through with it. Seika looks stunned by this revelation, but Arisa quickly reminds her that she once said she wasn't interested in participating either. Maho jumps in and clarifies that, realistically, Shinobu is way too young for marriage. She adds that she didn't move into the house with the goal of marrying him. She explains that every girl in the apartment has their own issues. They all had to separate from their families, and that's when his mom came up with this shared house arrangement. She further explains that they all genuinely like his mom, AI, because she's cool and collected. So when AI made the request, she felt it was worth at least hearing her out. But before she can say more, Aya cuts in, revealing that her reason for agreeing was simple. She was curious about what kind of guy AI's son would turn out to be and wanted to meet him in person. Arisa then chimes in, saying that before they could allow a boy into this paradise of hot girls, they just had to put him through some kind of test first. Hearing all this, Shinobu finally realizes that everyone in the house is a full-grown adult, more like older sisters. It suddenly makes sense to him. There's no way these girls would ever take an ugly brat like him seriously. And just to drive the point home, Aya laughs and says it's not like she's so desperate that she'd have to resort to marrying a young boy like him, completely stabbing Shinobu's ego. Arisa jumps in too, further wrecking Shinobu's ego. She admits she's taken a bit of a liking to him, but says he's still outside her clapping zone. Seika tries to defend him, saying Shinobu is a real man with a matured cucumber. But Arisa doubles down, telling him to stick with being the caretaker. She adds that they'll just think of him as a cute little brother. That said, both Arisa and Aya pat Shinobu on the head and cheerfully tell him to do his best. But Shinobu has had enough. His pride in tatters, he storms out of the house in frustration, leaving the girls standing there, confused, unsure if they'd said something wrong. Outside the house, Shinobu reflects on everything the girls said. He feels relieved that none of them take his mom's ridiculous marriage condition too seriously. Still, it stings that they don't even see him as a man, just some brat. But thinking it over, there's a bright side. Thanks to this part-time job, he gets to live in such a nice apartment for an entire year. And deep down, Shinobu makes a silent vow. By the time this year ends, he'll prove to them all that even he can become a dependable man. Just then, Seika's voice calls out behind him. She apologizes, worried they may have said something that upset him. She blurts out that she doesn't want him to run away and disappear forever, but Shinobu reassures her, promising he's not going anywhere. When she asks if he means it, Shinobu smiles and tells her he's more motivated than ever. He thanks her sincerely for creating such a peaceful place for him. Overwhelmed, Seika tears up. She's just so happy that he feels that way. Meanwhile, Arisa and Maho, who have been quietly watching from a distance, overhear everything between Shinobu and Seika and immediately start teasing Seika, saying she's way too easy to read. Suddenly, a soft voice cuts through the moment, asking Maho if she lives in the neighborhood. Maho turns, confused by the sudden question. The girl, with a calm expression, says she's looking for Shinobu. Before Maho can even reply, the girl dressed in a stunning white dress states clearly that she came to bring Shinobu back. The mysterious girl apologizes and introduces herself as Yuna, Shinobu's friend. Arisa and Maho listen from a distance, clearly confused. Just then, Shinobu looks shocked as he recognizes Yuna. He calls out her name in surprise and asks what she's doing there. Yuna explains she heard about his situation from his mother. Then she drags him, forcing him to grab his stuff and go home with her at once. But Shinobu, confused, asked what's even going on. Yuna replies telling him she knows his mom wants him to marry one of the spoiled girls living in the apartment, but argues he doesn't have to follow every demand his mom makes like a mummy's boy with no brain. Still confused, Shinobu asks why she's in such a hurry, and then tries explaining that there's a good reason for this arrangement. But suddenly, Seika interrupts, suggesting they take a quick break since Yuna must be tired after coming all this way, and then offers that they go inside to talk things out calmly and rationally, to which Yuna agrees. Inside the apartment, the girls welcome Yuna with warm smiles and sparkling eyes, calling her cute. But Shinobu feels very uncomfortable with everything going on while Yuna politely introduces herself to the rest of the girls. With introductions done, Yuna tells Shinobu that since it's only for one night, she plans to stay over and take him back with her the next day. Her bold announcement causes everyone to pause, with Shinobu looking surprised by her confidence. Shortly after, all the girls gather in the living room, creating an awkward atmosphere for Shinobu. While enjoying a cup of drink, Yuna then shares that her mom and Shinobu's mom have been best friends since they were very young. Since childhood, she and Shinobu always hung out together, even though Yuna is a year older and noticeably taller than Shinobu. A flashback shows their childhood dynamic and how they constantly fought over everything, acting like siblings during the holidays. Their toxic relationship has always been a big source of frustration for Shinobu. Thankfully, ever since Shinobu's parents separated, they've stopped seeing each other. But everything changes when Shinobu enters senior school, and Yuuna starts annoying him all over again like a pest by following him everywhere he goes. Shinobu admits internally that's why he never told her about his current living situation and chose to keep it a secret from her. The girls continue their awkward conversation as Yuuna expresses relief that the girls aren't taking the whole marriage thing seriously. Arisa confirms it, pointing out that even though Shinobu might be cute, he's still just a little brat. Aya then surprises everyone by asking Yuuna if she's in love with Shinobu and came all this way because she was worried about him. Yuuna's expression shifts to shock and frustration as she vehemently denies it, saying she isn't in love with Shinobu, not even the slightest. Clenching her fist, her voice softens as she admits that Shinobu was just like a younger brother to her. Later, the girls are enjoying their baths while Yuuna entertains them with stories about how Shinobu used to wet the bed when he was little, and how he'd try to cover it up. But eventually, mold started growing on his sheets. Meanwhile, Shinobu stands outside the bathroom, eavesdropping on the embarrassing stories Yuuna is telling the girls and turns bright red with embarrassment. After the shower, the girls discuss the sleeping arrangements. Seika gasps in shock, asking if Yuuna is really going to sleep in the same room as Shinobu. Yuuna explains that since it's a Japanese-style room, laying out another futon will be fine. But Seika still finds it weird for a girl and a boy to share a room. Just then, Arisa appears to clarify that they'll all be sleeping together in Shinobu's room as usual, so there's no need to be shy. Shocked, Seika insists she won't join them and chooses to sleep outside the door instead. Shinobu, on the other hand, looks annoyed, realizing this arrangement isn't going to work, so he decides to sleep on the couch. But then he suddenly remembers he forgot his alarm inside the room and decides to go get it. Meanwhile, inside the room, Seika prepares a futon for Yuuna. Yuuna thanks her and then quickly apologizes for imposing. However, Seika assures her it's no problem and reflects on the day's events. She admits it was a real surprise and that she never would have guessed Shinobu had such a cute friend. She then assures Yuuna that she understands that she came because she was worried about Shinobu. But just then, Yuuna gets emotional and opens up, mentioning that Shinobu's family situation is a bit complicated. Struggling with her emotions, Yuuna admits her parents were just as difficult as Shinobu's, which is why she understands his feelings because they are the same. She confesses she's scared of Shinobu growing up and leaving her behind. She can't quite put it into words but wonders what this strange feeling is. Seika listens with a confused expression as Yuuna admits that even though she's just met her, talking with her made her feel calm. Meanwhile, Shinobu is in the living room, unable to sleep, eavesdropping on the girls' conversation through the door. Inside, Seika gently places her hand on Yuuna's face and says she doubts Yuuna would have come this far if she weren't truly worried about Shinobu. Yuuna responds defensively, saying it's not like that, but then thanks her. The next morning, Yuuna tells Shinobu she's decided to stay in the apartment for now to watch over him and make sure he doesn't mess up. Shinobu looks shocked by the unexpected news, but Yuuna reveals she's already told his mom. She then sticks her tongue out, teasing him that it's too bad for him, while Shinobu stares, stunned, wondering if he should accept it. Before long, Maho is at her gaming setup, streaming live to her audience, as she welcomes everyone to her Friday live stream. The online chat buzzes with excitement as she thanks viewers for already hitting 1,000 watchers. The chat fills up with comments from her regular viewers. People ask about her boyfriend and relationships, but Maho keeps her focus on the game. When someone asks if she has a boyfriend, Maho gets flustered and snaps. She says she does have one, but then jokes that the 5,000 people watching her stream are all her lovers. The following morning, in the living room, Shinobu is busy with his caretaker duties. He's wearing an apron and making breakfast for Maho. He mentions that school starts in just 2 days, so he won't be able to cook like this much longer. Maho gives him a thoughtful look, quietly disappointed that her caretaker is still basically just a schoolboy. Meanwhile, the rest of the girls sit in the living room, chatting about Maho's streaming career. Arisa mentions that Maho's stream is actually pretty popular, and that she's been getting a lot of views lately. Yuuna admits she watched a bit of Maho's stream yesterday, even though she hasn't played many games since she was little. Seika, on the other hand, is amazed. Lost in thought, she quietly mutters about the strange things people can do on the internet these days. Shinobu overhears Seika and teases her for being clueless about the internet. In her defense, Seika says her family never let her use it, and she couldn't even set up streaming on her phone if she tried. Aya then chimes in, saying she's actually pretty good at gaming herself, but someone calls her a drunkard and warns her not to fall asleep in the living room. The conversation shifts when Yuuna mentions that Maho's viewer base must be pretty young to ask a grown woman if she has a boyfriend. Yuuna blushes, but explains that most of her viewers are naughty and love spamming silly messages. The girls laugh about the ridiculous chat spam, but they all agree there's definitely some truth behind the messages. While the girls laugh, Maho quietly reflects with a hint of sadness about her dating life. At 26 years old, she's never actually dated anyone. It's revealed that, aside from casual gaming, she doesn't really have many hobbies. All she ever did was focus on studying or work, always diligent, until she started streaming. Lying on her bed, Maho reflects on her lonely situation. She realizes that if she doesn't find someone she's truly interested in, love and marriage won't really matter. Her friends have all been getting married one by one, and she's starting to worry she might spend her whole life being an old cranky spinster. When AI had told her about the apartment arrangement, Maho had agreed, thinking she might as well give it a try for a year. But sadly, the guy they were supposed to be matched with turns out to be an immature adult dropout. Later, someone mentions that since Maho is a streamer, she must be pretty good at games. It's Shinobu who then suggests they could play together sometime if she wants, claiming he used to be pretty good at games back in the day. Maho gets a bit flustered, but says she doesn't mind. With that, they both head into her gaming room. But while at the door, Shinobu feels a bit nervous, wondering if he should actually go in or not. However, Maho reassures him she doesn't mind, but points out there are a few things she'd rather he not touch in her room. When Maho asks if he's really okay with entering a girl's room, Shinobu reassures her there's no need to be nervous since he can talk freely with her, and doesn't really see her as a girl. Maho freezes in shock at what she just heard, and thinks to herself that Shinobu is way too relaxed about the whole situation. Maho immediately switches into game clearing mode, determined to show Shinobu the appeal of a grown woman. Meanwhile, just outside Maho's room, Seika and Yuuna nervously eavesdrop, hoping nothing weird happens while Maho and Shinobu are alone. A flashback shows someone confessing to Maho, but that was a long time ago. As she reflects, she clearly remembers turning the guy down. She feels a twinge of sadness, wishing she could have experienced true love just once. Meanwhile, Shinobu looks confused when he hears Maho invite him to appear as a guest on one of her live streams. She explains it's a special autumn live stream since summer break is almost over. Shinobu admits he likes games but has never played a horror game before. But Maho reassures him it's technically horror but not really scary, and he doesn't have to do anything. A few minutes later, in Maho's bedroom, she's dressed like a seductive secretary. She tells Shinobu all he has to do is sit next to her and react to what's happening. Shinobu notices her outfit and asks why she's dressed that way. Maho explains that this was her look when she worked at a real company. Getting into character, Maho calls Shinobu her subordinate for today's stream. Shinobu looks confused by her professional appearance and the whole subordinate act. Maho explains it'll be more interesting if she streams while they pretend she's the superior he's always admired. But Shinobu still has no clue what the gamer is talking about. Meanwhile, Maho is having the time of her life, enjoying every moment. Based on her research, Maho knows that men find girls in uniform irresistibly attractive and often form strong attachments to them. Lost in thought, she smiles, confident that dressed this way, Shinobu won't be able to resist her charm. Shinobu snaps her out of her thoughts by asking if she's been unemployed this whole time. Maho gets embarrassed and annoyed at the question, but eventually calms down and opens up about her past. She mentions that she used to work for a company the previous year, and streaming was more like a side hobby for her. When Shinobu asks where she worked, Maho explains she was responsible for sorting and organization at Meshia Works. Shinobu immediately remembers that Meshia Works is a super famous electrical appliance manufacturer, and says it's a bit of a shame Maho stopped working there. Maho admits she only got the job because of her parents' connections. She says she had always wanted to be a streamer since games were the only thing she truly enjoyed. She adds that she doesn't regret the path she chose. She enjoys what she does and makes an honest living from it. Shinobu reflects that if it were him, he'd never quit a job at a company like that. But then he points out that making a living doing what you really love is a pretty cool flex. Maho's face turns red as she blushes. This is the first time someone has called her cool since most people just make fun of her. She thanks him sincerely for understanding her perspective. But then Maho gets flustered, realizing Shinobu might be talking about her charm as an adult, not her personality. She notices she's getting a bit too excited and tells herself to calm down. With that, she gets ready to start the live stream. She puts on her headphones and tells Shinobu it's his last chance to take a deep breath, instructing him to put on his headphones as well. Shinobu promises he won't disappoint her and follows her lead. As the game is about to start, Maho notices Shinobu seems to be enjoying himself, so she decides to let him off the hook. They share a brief moment, staring at each other, and Shinobu realizes it's the first time he's seen her genuinely smile. Maho blushes deeply and nervously blurts out that she can smile sometimes when she's in a good mood, then asks if there's something wrong with that. Shinobu tells her no, and with a sincere smile, tells her she looks cute. Overwhelmed by the compliment, Maho starts to get emotional. She blushes harder and freaks out. It's the first time anyone has ever called her that. The stream is about to start, so Maho tries to compose herself. She realizes she's starting to feel emotions she thought she had locked away long ago. Instead of showing off her adult charm, Maho feels like a teenage girl all over again. To keep her emotions in check, Maho stands up from her gaming chair and admits defeat, saying she gives up and it's her loss this time. But Shinobu points out that the game hasn't even started yet. Suddenly, Maho hears a noise just outside her door. When she opens it, she catches Seika and Yuuna eavesdropping, but they claim they're just taking out the laundry. Maho then decides to start another live stream, announcing she has special guests today, her friends, who'll be playing with her. Seika panics at first, saying being live is bad for her heart, but soon they all agree to join in. The morning sun rises over the shared apartment as a new day begins. School is back in session, and everything feels different now. Someone calls out for Shinobu as footsteps hurry around the house. Yuuna stands ready in her crisp school uniform, telling Shinobu to hurry up or they'll miss the bus. Shinobu stumbles around, struggling to keep his eyes open. He admits he's still half asleep, blaming it on playing games with Maho all night. Yuuna reminds him that school started a week ago and scolds him to get his life together. Just then, Seika walks into Shinobu's room carrying his school bag, showing she's already keeping track of his stuff. Shinobu takes the bag from her with a smile and thanks her. When Seika asks if he's okay, Shinobu tries to play it off like he's fine. But his tired eyes tell a different story, and he finally admits he only got 3 hours of sleep. With summer break over, the transition from vacation mode to school mode is rougher than expected. Meanwhile, the other residents of the apartment are settling back into their normal routines. It's already September and everyone is adjusting to the change. After Shinobu and Yuuna leave for school, Seika, dressed in her maid outfit, looks determined, as if she has a plan brewing. She grabs her bag and leaves the house. At school, Shinobu lets out a big yawn, still fighting off drowsiness. During lunch, he notices his friend Takahashi eating a croquette and comments that it sounds crispy and fresh, wondering if it's any good. Takahashi confirms it tastes great and mentions he got it from the school cafeteria, though they're completely sold out now. Just then, things get interesting when Takahashi notices Shinobu's fancy bento box filled with delicious-looking food. He comments that the lunch box looks pretty and girly. Thinking of Seika, Shinobu explains that a girl from the shared apartment he lives in made the food for him. Takahashi is stunned to hear that his caretaker at home makes lunch for him. The situation becomes awkward when Takahashi starts asking if the girl in the apartment is pretty, making Shinobu tense up. Suddenly, Shinobu hears a voice teasing him to talk about the beautiful older sister who lives in his apartment. He turns to see none other than Aya, wearing a lab coat. Shocked, he asks what she's doing at his school and reminds her she can't just waltz in like that. Aya teases him, asking if he's still half asleep, and then reveals that she works at the school. Shinobu's brain glitches for a moment, trying to process this, while his friend Takahashi comments on Shinobu's sudden unexpected closeness to the teacher. Seeing how clueless Shinobu is, Takahashi explains that Aya is the newly employed hot nurse at the school. Shinobu freezes in shock, unable to process what he just heard. Meanwhile, Seika is at the convenience store picking out a few ingredients for dinner. Sometime later, inside the school infirmary, Aya spots someone who looks like Seika from afar. She wonders what Seika is doing at the school and decides to go confront her. Seika nervously explains that she just wanted to see what kind of school Shinobu attends. When Aya points out that Seika must really like Shinobu, Seika blushes hard and denies it. She explains she was shopping for dinner and just happened to stop by. Changing the subject, Aya asks what she bought. Seika excitedly opens her bag, revealing some veggies, meat, and curry. With a cheerful smile, Seika says she's looking forward to dinner that night. At the end of the school day, while walking home, Shinobu tells Yuuna that Takahashi somehow found out they're living together. Disappointed, Yuuna reminds him that information like that spreads quickly in school. Frustrated, Shinobu says Takahashi was really persistent about coming over to the house, but he refuses. Shinobu notes that nothing good will come of the situation. Yuuna pauses for a moment, then nonchalantly says she wonders about that. Shinobu looks troubled and asks what she means. Yuuna turns away, saying it didn't mean anything, but in a mocking tone, adds it sounded like he was enjoying himself when bragging about his lifestyle to his friend. Caught off guard, Shinobu insists he's not happy at all with the situation and reminds her he works in the house. They step into the apartment and are greeted by Seika, who's holding a tray filled with croquettes. She happily announces she just finished making the snack. Shinobu's eyes widen in shock, wondering how she knew he'd been craving croquettes all morning. As he rushes to grab one, Seika also offers fried meat and vegetables to keep it healthy. She explains that the women in the apartment all eat healthy, and since he's been suffering from summer fatigue, she figured a nutritious dinner would help replenish his stamina. Shinobu is stunned by her kindness and thanks her sincerely while Yuuna looks at him feeling kinda jealous. The next day at school, Shinobu and Yuuna arrive together as usual. Yuuna then bids him goodbye as she heads to her class. During PE class, Takahashi starts teasing Shinobu, saying his life sounds dreamy because he has a beautiful honor student as his childhood friend. Shinobu tries to explain that all he and Yuuna do is fight. But Takahashi pokes him in the face with a basketball, calls him a normie, and tells him to stop complaining. He continues teasing, saying Shinobu also lives with a hot nurse and other beautiful women. Takahashi jokes that Shinobu must be the king of all rom-com harem protagonists and admits he's really jealous. Meanwhile, in class, Someone holds a phone, searching on Google how to become more of a grown woman. Yuuna gets startled when a girl asks if she watched Baekhyun's stream the day before. But as the girl talks, Yuuna is lost in thought, thinking about Seika. After the cricket incident earlier, she can't stop admiring how impressive Seika is at taking care of others. Not only that, but Seika is considerate, super kind, and busty compared to her flat chest. But Yuuna snaps out of her thoughts, telling herself she's just as good at taking care of Shinobu as Seika is. Suddenly, she looks out the window and sees Shinobu standing with Aya. Jealous once again, Yuuna decides, like the true tsundere she is, to follow them. She trails behind as they enter the infirmary and close the door. Panicking, Yuuna worries they might be up to something else. She decides to eavesdrop by the door and suddenly overhears Aya screaming softly. Yuuna freezes, thinking Aya might be swiping Shinobu's V-card like a cashier. She also overhears Shinobu apologizing, saying it's his first time doing something like this. That confirms it for Yuuna. She knows some major banging is happening behind the door. Her imagination runs wild as she pictures Aya in a seductive top telling Yuuna that, as the adult, she'll take the lead. Furious, Yuuna can't waste another second and immediately bursts in, swearing on her life that she'll never forgive Shinobu if he betrays her like that. Shinobu, holding out his bandaged finger, and Aya, sitting beside him, looks stunned by her sudden entrance. Shinobu explains that Aya just helped bandage his finger after he sprained it playing basketball. Yuuna nearly dies of embarrassment. To make things worse, Aya teases her, asking if she assumed they were doing something indecent. Yuuna immediately yells, lying that it was never her intention. But then, Aya pats her head, assuring her that nothing like what she imagined will ever happen, and tells her she can sleep easy. At those words, Yuuna finally realizes what she truly lacks is the composure and experience of an adult. Shinobu, on the other hand, is still pissed that Yuuna could think such lewd things about him. The two start arguing, but Aya cuts them off, saying they can flirt all they want later, but for now they need to head back to class. Shinobu and Yuuna both turn bright red with embarrassment as they shout they weren't flirting or anything like that. Saturday morning arrives, and Yuuna is in her room, desperately researching on her phone how to be a grown woman. The search results list things like being kind, tolerant, and good at cooking. Meanwhile, downstairs, Shinobu wakes up looking completely exhausted. He stumbles around like a zombie, barely able to keep his eyes open. In the kitchen, he finds Yuuna making breakfast for everyone, trying her best to be helpful and mature. Shinobu asks what she's making, and Yuuna proudly announces it's amurus. But when Shinobu tastes it, his expression says it all. It's not his typical amurus. Trying to be polite, he says he always thought amurus was a bit childish. Yuuna snaps back defensively, insisting it's not childish at all, and who cares as long as it tastes good. They start arguing over whether what Yuuna made is really amurus until Aya shows up, takes a bite, and her face lights up with genuine surprise. She calls the dish risotto and says it's actually delicious. Shinobu admits it's risotto, not amurus, and jokingly asks for a taste. Yuuna isn't having it. She gets mad, asking why Shinobu is making fun of her cooking when he himself wasn't any better at first. But then she remembers that, according to her research, a grown woman is supposed to stay calm. To confirm this, Aya shows her maturity by scolding Shinobu, saying that cooking is a form of love. She explains that being thankful for the food you receive is important. Yuuna pauses, taking in this adult perspective. The comment hits differently coming from someone as mature as Aya. After that, Aya leaves the kitchen, saying she's going to wash her face. Watching her go, Shinobu is in awe of her calmness and her ability to stay composed without getting angry. Yuuna realizes that staying calm under pressure is part of being a grown woman. Embarrassed by her earlier outburst, she sticks out her tongue and gives Shinobu a half-hearted apology before storming out. Later that day on the balcony, Yuuna is back on her phone, still obsessing over the How to Be a Grown Woman article. She's reading about being kind, considerate, and not getting agitated during conversations when Aya sneaks up behind her without her noticing. Aya catches her and finds the whole thing pretty amusing. Embarrassed, Yuuna gets flustered and tries to hide her phone, denying she was doing anything. Aya laughs and asks if Yuuna is worried about something. Yuuna finally lowers her defenses and begs Aya not to laugh if she opens up. She explains she's been thinking about how to be a grown woman since she arrived. Yuuna admits sadly that even though she's older than Shinobu, he's better than her at practically everything. She adds that it makes her feel like a baby, and she ends up panicking. Aya then drops some serious wisdom about what it means to be a grown woman. Looking thoughtful, she tells Yuuna not to worry too much about it. Aya explains that everyone becomes an adult eventually, whether they like it or not. She points out a deep truth, that no one really knows what they're doing at 20, and before they know it, they're 30. The mood shifts as Aya reassures Yuuna that everyone eventually becomes the person they want to be. Her advice grows more personal as she tells Yuuna that through life's experiences, she'll discover her ideal way of living, and before she knows it, she will realize she's grown up naturally. Yuuna then asks if Aya being single is by choice. Aya says no and casually mentions that she's trying to find a partner and wants to get married. She explains that growing up means becoming the person you want to be, and for her, that means finding the perfect person to build a family with. Shortly after that emotional moment with Aya, Shinobu meets up with Yuuna to have a talk. When Yuuna asks what's on his mind, Shinobu says he's willing to teach her how to make omurice if she's willing to learn. Yuuna declines, saying it's fine since the one she made was also delicious. Still, Shinobu takes the rejection surprisingly well, insisting that with a bit of practice it could taste even better. Hearing this, Yuuna's face lights up with genuine happiness. She smiles, clearly touched that he's willing to work with her instead of writing off her cooking completely. With that, she agrees to play teacher and student. Suddenly, Seika appears and suggests they have tea together, mentioning she bought some delicious cream bread to share. Yuuna notices how cheerful Seika is and wonders if she can become as caring and upbeat as her one day. We take a look into Nozomi's life. In the past, she was told that spending her time drawing pictures wasn't considered beneficial. Her parents had advised her to stop immediately. Her mom also mentioned plans for a marriage interview, noting that the potential partner has a wonderful social standing. However, Nozomi expresses that she doesn't want to be bound by her family's rules. So she decided to change her environment and agreed to join the shared apartment. A month has passed since she left her family home. While lying on her bed in her room, Nozomi receives a call about a job. She reflects on the task. It's a rom-com aimed at girls, and she's been asked to draw the main female character. Even for a talented illustrator like her, it's a bit challenging because she lacks experience with love. When thinking about the heroine in these kinds of romance stories, she immediately pictures a foreign, long-haired beauty with charming eyes, a character very much like Arisa. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Shinobu serves tea, wearing an apron. A bit annoyed, he warns Arisa to stop texting at the table during breakfast. Arisa teasingly calls him Mom for scolding her all the time, which instantly infuriates Shinobu. Yuuna jumps in, agreeing with Arisa and saying Shinobu acts like a mother. That's why they keep calling him Mom. Shinobu blushes with embarrassment and warns them to cut it out. As the girls continue their friendly banter, Nozomi sits lost in thought, staring at Arisa while thinking about the job she has ahead. Realizing she's been staring too long, she quickly takes a bite of bread to avoid being noticed. Growing increasingly uncomfortable, Nozomi finally announces that she's going to have breakfast in her room and then leave, but she forgot her sketch pad on the dining table. Just as Nozomi leaves, Shinobu gossips about how often she shuts herself in her room to avoid getting close to anyone. Arisa jumps in, explaining it's because Nozomi is very busy working on her illustrations. Shinobu is taken aback, impressed that Nozomi can draw and calls her amazing. Arisa continues praising Nozomi's talent, and then lectures Shinobu on how much time and patience it takes to create a story and draw all the illustrations. Yuuna interrupts, curious about what kind of story Nozomi is working on right now. Maho replies that she heard a while back that Nozomi is working on some kind of rom-com. When Shinobu admits he's never heard of a rom-com and asks what it is, Arisa suggests it's better if he reads one instead of her explaining. Shortly after, Arisa enters Nozomi's room and drops the sketch pad she had forgotten on her desk. Her sudden presence startles Nozomi, who is busy sketching. Once she calms down, Nozomi thanks Arisa, saying she didn't notice when she came in. Arisa then spots the female character Nozomi is drawing and asks if it's for her next novel. Nozomi says yes, but adds she hasn't come up with the story yet. Arisa compliments Nozomi's drawing, saying she really loves them and that they look great. Nozomi is caught off guard by the praise since it's the first time she's been complimented so directly. She thanks Arisa shyly, and in that moment, Arisa notices the character Nozomi is drawing on her sketchpad looks exactly like her, but doesn't pay much attention to it. On the other hand, Nozomi thinks Arisa is a beautiful girl who probably has plenty of experience with love, making her the perfect image for the character. Curious, Nozomi asks Arisa why she's living in the apartment, pointing out that a beautiful girl like her shouldn't have any trouble finding someone to marry. This prompts Arisa to open up about her family situation. She reveals that one big reason she came to the apartment was simply because it sounded interesting. She explains that her parents kept pushing marriage interviews on her, and it eventually became too much to handle. Nozomi agrees, mentioning that marriage interviews at age 21 seem way too early. Arisa grows more emotional as she shares that living her whole life alone doesn't exactly sound happy to her. Still, she admits she doesn't want to be with someone she can't even stand. Instead, she wants to be with someone she truly treasures. 15 minutes later, Nozomi receives a call from work that leaves her slumping onto the bed, overwhelmed with disappointment. Curious, Arisa asks if she's okay. At first, Nozomi insists she's fine, but then opens up about the problem she's facing. She explains that her client is a magazine aimed at young girls planning to run a rom-com, and because her story gained popularity, she's been stuck writing rom-coms ever since. Nozomi admits that she wasn't great at romance stories at first, but kept at it anyway. Arisa offers some thoughtful advice. She suggests Nozomi try changing the kinds of stories she writes. Noticing Nozomi's lack of enthusiasm, Arisa tells her it seems like she's being forced into something she doesn't enjoy. Taking Nozomi's hands gently, Arisa encourages her to create what she truly enjoys from now on. Nozomi thinks about Arisa's advice and realizes it makes sense. She thanks her sincerely for listening and understanding. A month passes, and the girls have grown much closer. Arisa now calls Nozomi by her first name and asks if they should go to the library together. Shinobu watches their closeness and comments on how unexpected their pairing is. At the library, they come across Nozomi's new release, a romance story set in a shared house. Arisa excitedly points it out, and Shinobu notices the girl on the cover bears a striking resemblance to Arisa herself. It's been 3 months since Nozomi moved into the shared apartment, and she wonders if she's managed to change. One thing is certain, though. She's found a special kind of friendship with Arisa. Time flies and January arrives. Snow blankets the ground as winter settles in fully. The girls adjust to their daily routines in the cold. Seika steps outside, bundled up in her warm winter coat and boots, sweeping fresh snow from the walkways. Suddenly, a black and white cat appears nearby, softly meowing as it approaches her. Seika kneels down and gently pets the friendly cat, asking where it came from while scratching behind its ears. The cat seems to enjoy the attention, nuzzling against her warm gloves. At that moment, a strange man in a gray hoodie appears in the hallway, looking around. He introduces himself as Shinobu's father, Masamune, and says it's nice to meet her. The girls gather around, clearly shocked by the unexpected visitor, but Shinobu's father quickly apologizes for dropping by without any warning. Inside the apartment, Shinobu wasn't expecting his father's arrival. The air grows tense as father and son face each other. Masamune explains he came to check on Shinobu since he hadn't come home over New Year's. But Shinobu snaps, telling his dad that he stopped by the house multiple times, yet he was never there. Masamune responds that he was away on a photo shoot and apologizes for his absence. As the father and son talk, the girls learn more about Masamune's job. He's a photographer specializing in photos of female students and teenage models. Seika looks puzzled when she hears about this kind of photography and immediately assumes it must be some sort of online fan shoot. But Yuna quickly clarifies that Masamune's photos are actually impressive. She even shows them a copy of one he took, leaving the girls stunned. Yuna goes on to explain that Masamune originally focused on nature and animal photography, but later shifted to taking photos of girls. She adds that because of his demanding job, Shinobu's mother, Ai, left shortly after. The girls begin to understand Shinobu's family situation more clearly. His father was rarely home due to work, which meant Shinobu was often alone, having to take care of himself. Still, Seika points out that despite this, Shinobu turned out to be a decent person, even if he became a bit too independent for his own good. In the end, Seika concludes that Shinobu is a genuinely nice guy. The conversation lightens up when Aya playfully asks Masamune if he'd take a few pictures of her too. But Maho quickly shuts her down, coldly reminding Aya that she's out of the age bracket. Masamune then comments on how lucky Shinobu is to be living with such gorgeous girls, and cheekily asks if he could take photos of them as well. Before anyone can respond, Ai suddenly storms into the apartment, demanding Masamune to hold it right there. With a fierce glare, she demands to know what the heck he's doing in the shared house. Masamune tries to greet his estranged wife in a friendly way, but Ai cuts him off coldly. She reminds him that she had warned him never to set foot in the apartment. Angrily, she tells him he has no business showing up at a place that's home to only girls. When Masamune attempts to speak, Ai immediately shuts him down, and the two launch into bickering like an old retired couple. Shinobu, mortified by his parents' argument, quickly and politely asks if they could please take the quarrel outside. Shortly after, Shinobu lounges on the couch, visibly worn out from the roller coaster of chaos that unfolded that day. Seika approaches, curious about his strange parents. Shinobu tells her that his mom took his dad into town and got him a hotel room. But Seika thinks that since Masamune made the trip all the way there, he might as well have stayed. Shinobu reminds her that the apartment is strictly girls only, and since his dad has a weird habit of liking to be around young girls, his mom wouldn't hear of him staying. Seika points out that despite everything, the way his mom acts toward his dad shows she still loves him. Caught off guard, Shinobu laughs nervously and says he thinks his mom is just being jealous. The deeper family issues surface as Shinobu opens up to Seika. He explains that his mom was always angry at his dad, and eventually they reached a point where they started living separately because they just couldn't get along. A flashback shows young Shinobu eating dinner alone at the table. He reveals that because of his dad's absence, he was often left alone. The loneliness pushed him to realize he needed to be more independent, and to do that, he had to start making his own money. That's why he took on part-time jobs. Back then, all Shinobu wanted was a stable life where he could stand on his own without causing trouble for anyone. But now, things have turned out differently than he'd expected. Living in the apartment has changed how Shinobu sees family. With a genuine smile, he says he feels like they are all one big family now. The girls are moved by the warmth in his voice and can only look at him in silent admiration. Seika then approaches Shinobu with a gentle request, asking if she can pat him on the head. The sweet gesture catches Shinobu completely off guard and he stammers before giving his permission. Seika then lovingly pats his head. The rest of the girls decide they also want to join in the affectionate moment too, making Yuna fume with jealousy. The scene grows into a big group moment on the couch as all the girls pile around Shinobu in a one big warm family snuggling session. Several days later, Shinobu steps outside alone, lost in thought about everything that has happened. Suddenly, Masamune appears. Startled, Shinobu warns him that showing up unannounced will only earn him an earful from his wife. Masamune shrugs it off, saying he just came to say goodbye. He complains about his wife's strictness and admits he wishes they could all live together again. When Shinobu asks whose fault it is, Masamune honestly takes the blame before leaving, however. Masamune tells Shinobu that he's been informed about the plan for him to choose a girl from the apartment. He presses Shinobu to make a decision soon, urging him to hurry up and get it over with. Shinobu is left standing there, conflicted and uncertain. The next day, Shinobu's mom stopped by the house to apologize for showing such a pathetic side yesterday. By chance, she ran into Masamune inside and immediately got furious at Shinobu for not telling her he was there. Shinobu explained that his dad had just arrived and told her Masamune had begged him the day before to call her over. Shocked, AI warned it must be some kind of trap. Shinobu assured her it wasn't, and since she had been blocking Masamune's calls, he turned to him for help. Still suspicious, AI insisted on going back home. But with a serious tone, Shinobu begged his mom to hear his dad out. He reminded her that the reason she came the day before was also to settle things with Masamune. AI paused and then said something that shocked Shinobu. She said she had never expected Masamune to want to cancel the shared apartment plan. After that, she excused herself to the bathroom, leaving Shinobu wondering what she meant. With AI gone, the girls gathered around Shinobu, eagerly pressing him to find out what his dad wanted. The truth begins to surface as Shinobu hesitantly admits it's a bit of an odd story, but the girls insist he spill everything. He reveals that the day before, his dad pressured him to hurry up and choose a girl among them. According to Masamune, time is the most valuable asset people have, so holding the girls back for an entire year just because they're wife candidates is absurd. Masamune had given Shinobu a direct command: make a choice and free all the girls from this ridiculous arrangement. In the present, Arisa agrees that time is valuable but objects to the pressure Shinobu is facing to pick. Shinobu reassures her that, since each girl has her own reasons for being in the house and none of them see each other in a romantic way, he told his dad everything's fine. He's confident that they're all good. His honesty surprises the girls, who all fall silent, staring at him. After a pause, Maho admits that might have been true at the start, but now those words are up for debate. Emotions have begun to surface. Aya chimes in, saying feelings change daily and no one can predict what might happen. Arisa quickly adds that she's always believed things might work out. Nozomi shares that she finds it easier to talk to Shinobu now than before. Seika starts to say something full of emotion but suddenly stops mid-sentence, startling Shinobu. Just then, Masamune interrupts the moment, teasing Shinobu about how popular he's become with the girls, which leaves Shinobu blushing and embarrassed. Meanwhile, AI locks herself in the bathroom, refusing to come out or talk to anyone. Masamune calls out to her, asking her to come down, but she stays firm and demands to know exactly what he wants. Masamune calmly replies that he's come to pick her up. AI still insists that Masamune should leave, but he reminds her they came to settle things once and for all. The tension between the two spikes, filling the apartment with a heavy, charged atmosphere. The young residents watch in silent horror as the place suddenly feels more like a battlefield than a home, emotions boiling over on every side. Before AI can speak, Masamune takes full responsibility for everything that has happened. The weight of guilt is clear on his face as he admits that it's all his fault. He explains that he always wanted to stand on his own feet as quickly as possible, but secretly hoped they could live together as a family. When AI asks if that's why he ended up photographing young girls, Masamune admits it's a matter of supply and demand, and the very reason he was scouted as a photographer. AI points out that even at that, he seemed genuinely passionate about his work. Masamune agrees but adds that the more pictures he takes, the happier his readers become, and the more money he makes. Masamune then foolishly admits that he likes girls, and that's where all his enjoyment comes from. Hearing this, AI becomes emotional and starts to leave the apartment, saying she's going home. But Masamune snaps back to reality and stops her before she can open the door. He tells her that the only person he truly wants to photograph is her, and that hasn't changed. AI doesn't believe him, dismissing it as cap. Masamune insists he's serious and begs for one more chance. He says he wants the three of them to live together as a family. AI reminds him she's not the same as before. She's now an old lady in her 30s. Masamune laughs and says he doesn't mind. He's an old geezer in his 40s anyway. Finally, Masamune's words break through to her. As AI grabs Masamune's jacket, Admitting that he really did think things through before coming to the apartment, Masamune pulls her into a hug, confirming her words and adding that he's desperate after all. With everything settled, Masamune suggests they go home, and AI replies with a shy, blushing smile. Afterward, AI approaches the girls and apologizes for the embarrassing scene. She announces that starting that day, the conditions for staying in the apartment have been abolished and they can all live there freely. Aya quickly assures her it's fine, saying they've been pretty free anyway. With that, the couple leaves the apartment together, and the girls wave them goodbye. Inside, Arisa wonders aloud if AI might have started the whole shared apartment plan out of jealousy. The girls started chatting about the couple, finding their story surprisingly romantic. But then Seika raised a serious question. She asked what would happen now that the conditions were gone. The room fell silent as the girls pondered her words. Meanwhile, Shinobu was finishing up washing the bathroom when Seika walked in carrying a jug of tea. She offered some to Shinobu, who took a big gulp and immediately felt refreshed. He thanked her sincerely and then apologized for any trouble his parents might have caused. Seika smiled and said she was just relieved they had made up. She added that Yuuna had shown them pictures his father took, with AI as his model. Shinobu then explains that his dad's first photo shoot of his mom was back in school, and that was the very reason they got along. He shares that, even though his dad took pictures of girls, he always loved photographing nature and animals. So Shinobu feels his dad might eventually return to his roots. Talking about going back, Seika asks Shinobu if he plans to stop being the apartment caretaker now that the conditions are gone. She admits she'd be very sad if he did. Shinobu thinks about her words for a moment, then assures her he's not quitting since he's found himself a lucrative part-time gig. With a genuine smile, he tells Seika that he really enjoys staying in the house. Seika's face lights up with excitement, and she promises to keep supporting him and his work in the apartment. Shinobu is touched by her words and thanks her sincerely. Later, the rest of the girls are informed of Shinobu's decision to remain caretaker, and they're all excited. Yuuna then insists that if Shinobu is staying, she will stay too. If you enjoyed this video, drop a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching, as always.